Hello, welcome back. I'm Tonya from Tonya's Witchy Kitchen, and how are you doing today? As you can see, I am nice and cozy warm. I got this for Christmas. And it is work appropriate. Maybe not on a Zoom meeting, but other days it is. Yeah, it's so warm. It's just, oh, it's so warm. My son has always had food allergies, okay? And he was a little worse when he was little. He was just a sickly child. Like, you couldn't find the happiest, most lovable baby out there that was sickly half the time. Like, he would throw up for no reason, probably because of what I ate, you know. He was not colicky, so I was very lucky about that. And none of my kids were colicky, so knock on wood. I was very blessed in that department. But, you know, knowing what we know about colic nowadays, you know, if you have a colicky baby, look at what you're eating, look at the times that they are having it. You know, there's lots of stuff to do. And he had, like, allergies. Like, he was allergic to milk products. He was he could eat mozzarella cheese sticks. That was it. Could not eat anything else. He was allergic to, I can't remember, peanut butter, eggs, tree nuts, raspberries. They took him off shrimp, but he was never really allergic to shellfish. They're like, well, it goes with these, you know, tendencies. The weird thing is, so my kids have all these food allergies, but they don't have the actual other tendencies that other kids have, like the eczema or the you know, that's the big one I know, is everybody's like, oh, don't they have this? They never had that as little kids. They did not have all these other things that they classify as normal. So when they took them off shellfish and shrimp, it was kind of like, oh, you know, our diets had to change so drastically. I found out he was allergic to eggs because he took a bite of raw cookie dough that I was making, and yeah, broke out all over his face. But he could be in the tub, like, getting washed up, and he'd break out all over his chest for no reason. It was the craziest thing ever. And the raspberries, they didn't have a test for. Like, it's so funny. You can go to the doctor and they're like, oh, we don't have a test for that. Maybe they do now, but they didn't back then. And it was like, well, what happens? Well, he eats a raspberry and he basically pukes everything up, and then he gets hives all over his face. Yeah. So, yeah, it was really sucky. And he's actually dealt with the milk allergy. He's tolerated it as he grows older. And that's the thing, too, with allergies, is sometimes they're like, well, they'll outgrow them when they get older. And there's just not enough research, and they don't care. You know, Big Pharma would rather shove you know, here's a $1,200 EpiPen for you to buy. That's another crock of crap I'd like to get into, but we won't. But, you know, there's lots of money in food allergies, and there's so much, I just, can't even do it. But, yeah, so he's tolerated this. He's had issues in the past, you know, and it's been really difficult for him. And so when he finds something that he can eat, he's like, woohoo, you know, like Kemp's ice cream, I think, is okay. The Klondike bars he can eat, possibly Dairy Queen ice cream, you know, high cream content. He can eat cream and cream cheese and sour cream, you know, stuff like that. But then you look at it and it's like, well, it's kind of fermented. So the interesting thing is that we've been buying the raw milk from the farmers, right? And he's been drinking the milk. Like, I saw him have cold cereal the other day, and I went, you're gonna put milk on that? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, does it bother your stomach? Because we've tried A2 before. We've tried, you know, so in the progression of this, whole milk, pasteurized whole milk was his best bet. We figured it was because it was less processed than the other milks were. Okay. And the more he drank, though, you know, if it was too much at a time or whatever, then it would irritate his stomach. It would give him, you know, just all sorts of things. But the milk has always been an issue. Like, milk chocolate, hates it. Absolutely hates it. Even chocolate milk. he does not drink the milk chocolate milk. If you buy like the packet mixes, if we buy the dark chocolate, he can tolerate it. I don't buy milk chocolate chips just because he doesn't tolerate them very well. He doesn't like them. So we always do semi-sweet or dark chocolate, which is better for you anyway, so, but the interesting thing, so back to the cereal, the raw milk, he actually was eating it and he's like, well, I don't think it bothers me. And I'm like, sweetheart, you would know if it bothered you, like give it a half hour. You will know if it bothers you. Sometimes it doesn't even take a half hour. That's so weird. But I was getting into this whole thing with the raw milk and, why did they start pasteurizing milk anyway? What was the thing, right? So that's what I've been doing. And I found this fascinating article, and it's on the rawmilkinstitute.org. And I'm going to give you some highlights from this article. Read it yourself. It's very, very fascinating. And then we'll get to what we're doing today. So the article is, why did ancient humans start consuming milk from other animals? And then it goes into stuff. But think about it. I mean, that's pretty basic. Mammals forever have been feeding their young raw milk. Breast milk is raw milk. They feel that people way back, if they learned very quickly that milk from other animals was a complete source of nutritious food. Without refrigeration, any milk that wasn't consumed would ferment into cheese, curd, or whey. Milk storage vessels likely contained bacteria cultures from the previous milkings. They probably didn't wash it out. It was one pail for the milking, just kind of like we have one pail for collecting eggs, and it would just, continue this culturing process, and, you'd get more curds, and the curds contain a complete set of microbiome friendly nutrients and easy to digest. That's the kicker here. So if you had a cow, as long as you had water and food for the cow, shrubbery, grass, whatever, you could take that cow anywhere and you had a food source, a food supply, right? Ancient baby bottles provided evidence that milk from animals was used to feed human infants at least 8,000 years ago. It's crazy. I wonder what their baby bottles look like. These agriculture-based civilizations were so successful that they spread across the Mediterranean region, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East over the next few thousand years. And then, of course, humanity continued to domesticate additional species of animals throughout history. Many were utilized for their milk. Way back, they figured people basically lived to provide food for themselves. So when they were domesticated, when they had a domesticated animal as a food source, they didn't have to spend all their time looking for food. They could actually advance farther into other things. And if you owned a milking mammal, you actually became very wealthy because you were the food source for communities that were building. The consumption of raw milk provided a source of biodiverse colonies of bacteria for the human gut. Good bacteria we need in our gut. The gut is the second brain. And they figure people have been drinking raw milk for at least 10,000 years. An interesting thing with the lactose and the lactase, they talk about this gene, that how we genetically adapted to this. The lactose intolerance in reality, quote, is primarily pasteurization intolerance, unquote. Because raw milk facilitates the production of lactase, and it is not likely that there were widespread issues with lactose intolerance in Neolithic populations. Raw milk drinkers increased compared to non-milk drinking populations. So areas that they were drinking raw milk, they populated and expanded more than the ones that were not drinking milk. So their article, so you just scroll down and it's the next chapter maybe. Pasteurization, a technological solution to a man-made problem. So by the mid-1800s, in America, the raw milk production had shifted away from farms and into highly populated cities because, of course, they needed more mass production to provide milk. You know, when I was a kid, did I talk about this? We had a milkman come along to our house, and we had a little galvanized box, and he would put the milk bottles in there, and then, you know, I'm assuming my mom put the empty ones in there, you know, later. I don't know. I was little, you guys. I just barely remember this box. On our doorstep, you know where. But yeah, so I mean that was a thing. We had a cheese plant. We had all this stuff, you know, like a little town would have. But the big cities lacked a lot of things. They lacked pastures. They lacked clean water. The cows in the cities were kept in filthy conditions. They had poor nutrition and poor animal health overall. Cows were fed byproducts from alcohol distilleries. I'm going to stop there because if you know what an ethanol plant is, I'm sure you've seen one, and that is it is made from corn. So the farmer takes his corn to the distillery and they make ethanol. Now, the byproduct or the leftover product is called, oh, I'd have to ask my husband. I think it's called distiller. Farmers will buy that back to feed their cows. Not sure how good that is for them. They say it's great, but you know. Okay, so from alcohol distilleries, which led to a very huge amount of illness in these city cows. Citified cows? So raw milk, which had been safely consumed by humans for thousands of years, had become a source of deadly diseases such as tuberculosis, typhoid, diphtheria, and scarlet fever. In the late 1800s, that's when it was recognized that this raw milk was being produced in dangerous conditions, and there were two solutions they came up with. Obviously, pasteurization was the first solution they came up with because that would eliminate the pathogenic bacteria in the milk that was coming from the filthy conditions that they were letting their cows be in. The other solution, very smart, was to produce the milk the cows in hygienic conditions by healthy cows. Wow, which one do you think they picked? It was known already at this time that raw milk was the superior source of nutrition for children and infants. So the American Association of Medical Milk Commissions was established in the late 1800s to ensure a safe supply of hygienic raw milk for these children and infants. It was in operation for nearly a century. I never heard of it. Did you? It would go around, they would certify medical raw milk for use in hospitals for feeding children and infants that were under hospitalized care. Pasteurization was still ushered in to address the filthy conditions and unhealthy cows in the cities. So you could commercialize the dirty milk. We'll call it dirty milk because that's what they call it, and I love that term. They pasteurized the dirty milk so they could use it and sell it instead of milking cows in clean and healthy conditions. That was the safe way to sell milk, was to pasteurize it. However, we still know that pasteurization degrades, takes out, removes, kills all the good bacteria and good nutrients that whole milk has in it. In 2020, we are at a time of widespread immune depression and compromised health. Most Americans have not ever had raw milk. The raw milk's abilities and nutrients have been like forgotten. It's like they're trying to erase history here. Instead, we live in an age of immune destructive pharmaceuticals and antibiotics. Although life-saving in certain applications, these drugs also depress and damage the immune system and gut microbiome. Antibiotic resistance is now responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of people every year in the USA alone. Furthermore, pasteurized milk is now recognized as a top food allergen and difficult to digest. I'm not going to read any more of this article. As fascinating as it is, you might not find it as fascinating as I do, but it's the truth. I'm sorry, it's the truth. What kind of person would knowingly, because we unknowingly did this, buy milk? I mean, way back in the 1800s, it was dirty milk. It was from sick cows. You can't even butcher a sick cow and get it USDA inspected. You cannot. You cannot give a sick cow antibiotics. Is it antibiotics? You can't give them something, and you cannot butcher them for so many, it's like 30 days or 60 days till it's out of their system. And even then, depending on what they have, you cannot butcher them. But these people were milking cows that were sick in unhygienic conditions and then pasteurizing it to sell as safe milk for the community. Are you telling me, like, this just drives me nuts? But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. I mean, where do you think milk came from? Well, true moo. I don't think it true. I think true moo is a fake moo. But I don't like true moo. But up here we have Cask Clay and Land O'Lakes. And Land O'Lakes bought out Cask Clay, but you still see labels with Cask Clay on it, right? I mean, we no longer have a cheese plant. We no longer have dairy trucks coming. You have to basically have so much milk and be on this little route to get your milk picked up. Otherwise, you're just, there's so few dairies, and there used to be tons of dairies around here. They're slowly getting rid of them. Yet, it is one of the healthiest things you can do for your gut and your immune system. But I'm really glad states are starting to see and jump on board with this whole raw milk thing. Yeah. But anyway, okay, enough of this. I'm sure you're just like, she's not a soapbox today. Yeah, I'm on my soapbox today. But anyway, today we are going to do something so fun. I can't wait. Like, I've been waiting all week to get off of work just so I can do this. Okay, yeah. We are doing 100 times wash ghee. I'm not sure how many times I can wash the ghee, but we're going to do the 100 times wash ghee because guess what? To my friend who's been saying her cream's going to end up in her moisturizer, yes, it is. It is for moisturization properties. You don't wash the ghee except for a cosmetic product. So, let's go. Check this out. 3 things. Dream big. Be true to you. No matter what your truth is, be true to you. And you are worth it. Let's go check out this hygienic, pasteurized. No, it's not. It's raw ghee. Starting with the raw ghee we did before. Okay? Leading into this video, 100 times washed ghee. I will see you in the kitchen. Okay. Test 1. And I know you're going like, what do you mean test 1? Well, there's so much to this. Okay, so back a few years ago, literally a few years ago, I was doing research on washed ghee, and there wasn't a lot out there. There wasn't. I found a couple things, and I, bookmarked it, and, I lose my bookmarks, so on online stuff. And so it was like, okay, whatever, right? And then I decided after we made the ghee, it's like, well, what the heck? I'm going to do some more research. And I found a little bit more out there, but it's crazy. So this is liquefied ghee. I'm starting with 1 ounce for all 3 tests. The first thing, this is the first way everybody seems to do it online, okay? Well, they do use their big mixer, but, basically mix it with twice the amount of water, cool, cold water, and beat it for 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, I have a problem with this. The 3 to 5 minutes is like, what? But we'll get to the third test and talk more about that. But 3 to 5 minutes, beat the heck out of it. It's kind of like washing the butter, and I really thought like, well, we could probably wash the ghee this way, and I never did do that though, but it basically reminds me of washing the butter. But everybody online seems to do it this way. And I'm just like, it's a long time to stand there. And yeah, they use their big mixers, but I wasn't using mine for, obvious reasons. I was doing 1 ounce. But I wanted to just, okay, we're going to dive in here. We're going to see how this works. I'm not using distilled water in this one. I am using aloe vera juice and distilled water. Okay? Because the first time, so the first beating, we'll call it beating, washing, the first washing, it actually holds the most water up on this first wash. Okay? When you drain it, it's going to have less water than you put into it, which is a little weird. But I think it's because I was, expecting it to do what the butter does. If I had a cup of water to wash the butter, I end up with a cup of water coming out, See? So it just kind of threw me, like, why is it holding this water? So here's the thing. So we'll just start this. So basically, you want to use the best butter you can find. You are supposed to use just cow butter, okay? Not milk from a goat made into butter. Not milk from a sheep made into butter. Cow's milk made into butter, okay? I'm showing you like how little liquid I had because I had 2 ounces of liquid in there. Shatadata Grita. I'm just reading it. It means 100 times washed ghee. That's what it means. That's what it's called. It's not from any other animals except cows. Okay? And you'll see it all over the web. People have used goat milk and it makes a great thing. Yeah, okay. It's great, But to make the traditional 100 times washed ghee, it's cow's milk. That's what they've used. Okay? Look at that. Very pretty. Now, the interesting thing I did is I started reading the comments on some of these blogs because it's amazing the treasures you find in comments. Isn't it? So, while I am cleaning off my spatula here, and I think I'm going to show you, I strain it. So this is the next day. I put it in the fridge. So it was, I'm going to put it in the fridge and let it sit overnight and then squeeze the water out because that's what she did. Okay. But back to the ghee. Traditionally, they used a copper pot, a wooden spoon, a copper pot, and washed it 100 times. The 3 to 5 minutes, I don't know where they're getting this. Okay. Maybe they did actually mix it in their copper pot for 3 to 5 minutes by hand. Okay. You see, when I'm thinking about this, I'm like 3 to 5 minutes with a mixer versus 3 to 5 minutes hand mixing is 2 very different things. Okay? So they believe that ghee washed in a copper pot will never go bad. It has a shelf life of 100 years. there are trace particles from the copper that mix with the ghee. So then you get some of those properties in the ghee for the skin. And now supposedly they say they mechanically mix it today, but the key is to do it very, 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 very slowly. Cool water. Okay? So that was one of the comments. Okay, so now as I'm squeezing the water out, not everybody squeezed the water out. There were just, like I said, what you could find, it was kind of sketchy. But I understand why to squeeze it out in a way. When I was first doing this, I understood. I was like, well, okay, there's just water. What do you add a preservative? No, you don't add a preservative. Okay, they don't. They say if you sell it, you should add a preservative. But yeah, the ghee's coming through the cloth, you guys. Okay, so remember, this is the first one. It is aloe vera juice and distilled water and mixed about 15 times. And with 1.35 or 1.45 ounces left, that means there was 0.45 ounces of water in this batch. Okay, here's test number 2. You want to lightly melt your ghee. And for this test, I am still doing the hand beater test, or using the hand beater, sorry. And I decided, and hydrosol. So the first water is going to be half hydrosol, half distilled water, I think. I thought that's what I did. Yeah, it's rose hydrosol. It smells amazing. Okay, I did do half and half, yeah. That would get very pricey. But anyway, so what I'm doing here is because after reading all my notes and how slow mix is better, and all this stuff, I decided I was going to mix it, the second one, I was going to mix it, as low as I could on my beater, but I'm not going to mix it as long. I'm going to mix it roughly a minute. Yeah, I think I did minute and a half, that was most, per time, and then dump it out. Okay? Slow as I possibly can, which is not very slow, it's a hand mixer, but as slow as I could. And for just a minute, because I'm going 3 to 5 minutes hand mixer, 3 to 5 minutes hand mixing, that's a lot, and the amount of water and time this takes is super crazy, like literally crazy. Because when you start taking 1 minute times 100, that's 100 minutes. That's already almost, 2 hours. Not quite. You see what I'm saying? Okay. And I was doing it in the jar because I wanted to see if, closer contained, would help. Okay. Some facts about it when you're done. It shouldn't smell like ghee. It should not smell like butter. Okay. I was hoping to incorporate more hydrosol into it, but, I was really worried about wasting my hydrosol, and so I only did it the first time because I thought, well, if it's supposed to hold the most the first time, maybe it'll hold more hydrosol the first time. And then dump it out, and, dump it out, and then add more water. And I was not measuring. It wasn't 2 times the amount. I didn't know what 2 times the amount needed, but I just kept doing this, okay? The one lady that was commenting, who seemed to know a lot, said you should end up with less ghee than you started with. All 3 tests, I did not end up with less ghee. I ended up with more. I don't know how they did it to where they weren't getting more ghee because of the water that it was retaining. And she said never mix essential oils into the ghee because you don't want to use them on your face. She said Greeks, the TCM, I'm not sure who that is, and Ayurvedic never put essential oils on their face. I thought that was really interesting because, we Americans slather everything on our face. You can use vegetable oils. Those are okay to mix in. I guess if you wanted to mix soybean oil, you could. But, yeah, I'm thinking she's meaning like something good, like like hemp or jojoba or rosehip oil, something good for the skin. The classic was aloe vera juice. And I was like, woo, woo. I did the aloe vera before I even like read through the blog. You know, one person said you can do it like tallow, where you boil it for a few minutes, refrigerate, and discard the water, repeat till it's clean. Now, I understand that process because we render our own tallow. Somebody said it doesn't work, but I'm like, first of all, don't use the microwave. Second of all, sometimes you need to salt it. Like when we do tallow, we add salt to bring the impurities down. So I don't know, but somebody said it didn't work. It didn't work, but I didn't try it, okay? Now, there was a chemist who was on there, and she said basically you're making reverse micellus, like micellar. Okay, look how creamy that is. Oh, it's just beautiful. She said basically the fat droplets or let the water get trapped inside, and that's why the color changes. She said if you literally melted this again, it would turn yellow again. So basically all the fat is trapping the water inside. Where the cream, that's where it gets its creaminess because it adds water and triglycerides at the same time to the skin. And I was like, ooh, I like that. I like that, analogy. It's not what the chemistry that was on the blog, but the girl did say, she was like, wow, that's amazing. That's makes sense. Okay, and to test number 3. Liquefy the ghee. That is a picture of my solid ghee that we had made. And I decided, the girl was like, they do it in a pot, they mix it. She said she took a class, they kneaded it, and I'm thinking that's messy. But then I thought kneading it, like, okay, so everybody does this in the mixer with their paddle whip, kind of like we do when we do the butter, wash the butter. And I thought, hold the phone. If you wanted not to beat it, what would you do? You would use your dough hook to slowly knead it in there, right? Because you know what else I use a dough hook for? Cream soap. The real cream soap. You don't use a paddle, you use a dough hook to whip it. You can find this anywhere online. So if you've done this before, I couldn't find your blog, you guys. I'm sorry. But this was just a thought process in my mind, and I'm like, well, we'll see if this works, right? Because at this point right now, when I was watching it, I was like, this is not going to work. I was like, there's going to be some chunky stuff. Ugh. But this one, so the second one was made with the hydrosol and the distilled water. This one, I decided, because you go through a lot of water, you guys. This one, I decided, to heck with it, I'm using my own well water. So this would be mine. Well, they're all mine, actually, because, right now they're all mine. But I might gift them. But yeah, so I decided with all the water I was going through, I was going to be like, nope, I'm going to distill this water. Oh, the second test I did about 15 times also. This one, I ended up getting a little bit short because of the mixer, and I was still doing the 1 ounce of tallow. I decided that I just dumped the water in. It wasn't 2 times. It was more like 3, to 4 times the amount of water, which, okay, that makes sense. And I had to, this is speed it up. So, you'll get plenty of boring pictures here. But it was slowly coming together. If you watch it, it's slowly coming together. And then after, but I did do this one 5 minutes because I thought it's such a slow process, right? Like somebody churning, like if you're churning butter itself. So I did do it 5 minutes this way at the slow, number 2 knead speed. Okay. So just, that. And so, yeah, like this was the first 5 minutes and it's not even totally together. So I had to really be careful with straining, and I'm thinking, well, this is probably why they lost so much because, there it is. And this counter's really small, so I'm uncoordinated as heck trying to show you how I'm straining this out. I'm straining it just like I did the buttermilk from the butter. I'm using a jar and that little strainer metal thing. I think I showed it to you. Yeah. And then just straining it out. Okay. Just straining out the water and adding the, see, but you know, see, it's particles yet. They're hard to catch, just like the butter. So, maybe that's why they lost some ghee. I don't know. I don't know. But see, yeah. And also something to note is it was really hard to make sure. I had to check it often. You know, you couldn't just set it and let it go for 5 minutes. I had to keep watching it to make sure it was still moving it around and it didn't get stuck in the middle or stuck on the side, you know, type of thing. I had to keep watching it. Okay, so basically, if you look on Etsy, this stuff sells for about anywhere from $15 on up for a 1 ounce little jar. Nobody puts preservatives in it. They do tell you to keep it in the fridge with, and it will last 3 months. So you can see that if it's made with a cup or bowl, if it's true that that's what gives it its shelf life, 3 months versus 100 years is really odd. Although there are people that say that their ghee is in their bathroom and it's been there for, you know, however long, months. But I mean, a 1 ounce container, you know, I guess that would be the way to sell it, because you don't want them not using it and you don't want it sitting around for a long time. You know, I mean, there's all those rules and stuff. You can infuse ghee with a tea, like calendula or plantain. It's going to take a lot of water, so if you're going to infuse tea, it's going to take a lot of tea. If it smells funny, so there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it stunk after I put it on, and then I was like, maybe you're detoxing? That could be a thing, you know? It could also be the type of butter that they used. And that was a consensus overall, was make sure your butter is really good butter. I mean, if you can find Amish butter, you know, at your store, that would be the thing to go for, because, you know, you want it to be traditionally, it's raw butter turned to raw ghee turned to the washed ghee. Okay, see here, it's slowly moving around, and that's what I mean by, you know, it's this way I thought would be closer to traditional. There were also questions about, can you eat the washed ghee? Well, if you know, if you're using distilled water or the, you know, food grade aloe vera, sure. But why would you? You don't understand. The ghee has this awesome flavor. I could drink it, literally drink it. This stuff, you know, 15 times and I barely smell anything yummy. Okay. So, yeah. See, there's still water, and there's constantly water in my jars. There's always water falling out. I will tell you that. So this is our third one. Measuring it to see, you know, what we ended up with. And, you know, 173 isn't bad. It's not squeezed out. That seemed to be, you know, my average through all 3 of them. You know, the first one I squeezed it out and, you know, got down below. But, you know, so it does make you wonder, are you supposed to be short? Is that traditionally how it is? Okay, here's number 1. Okay, this is one we did first. I want you to look at the consistency of this. This is one I squeezed out. It's got a really nice, thick consistency. There is still water on the bottom of the jar. It just comes out. But on my hands, it's a nice, thick, creamy, moisturizing, a little greasy, but it does soak in. Like, it doesn't take long. You just got to wait a little bit, and it does soak in, but it's really nice. The second one, okay, interesting enough, this one, if you remember, I didn't squeeze out. Okay, this was just beat 1 minute, strained, 1 minute, strained, 1 minute, strained. And look at it's almost waterlogged, if you want to say that. It's almost waterlogged, but really nice. Same consistency, you guys. Same, give it a minute. I was smelling my arm. It does have a little bit of a rose scent to it. Very, very faint. The first one has almost a sweeter scent, and I think it's from the aloe vera juice. This is the third one. Very nice consistency. It's almost a consistency between the two, like not the strained and then unstrained. It's almost right between the two of them. And very, very similar, really. Which one do I like on my face? Actually like the first two on my face. And I think I know why. I'll show you. This is the pH of the first one. Perfect, right in that, 5 to 6 range. Here's the pH of the second one, also in that 5 to 6 range. Perfect for skin is what they say, right? Here's the last one. It was much greener than that, but this is the one I used our well water with, and our well water has a very high pH of 8. So until I get a copper bowl and a wooden spoon, I will be making this the same way I did number 3, but with aloe vera juice and maybe a little hydrosol. But anyway, I hope you had a good time. Thank you for dropping by, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.